Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. So, listen, the verse today is from Psalm 112, verse 5. And the verse says, "A good man deals graciously and lends. He will guide his affairs with discretion." So, he says that a good man, he deals graciously with other people, he lends to other people, and he's going to guide his affairs with discretion. Now, I'm going to use this verse as sort of a diving board. I'm going to jump off into something because he talks about dealing graciously and lending, dealing graciously with other people, being gracious to them, being willing to share with them, and to lend to them. And I'm going to use this and jump off, and I'm going to talk about our attitude about the poor, and how I'm going to share some verses with you that show how having the right attitude in regards to the poor can open up our lives to the blessings of God. Seriously. I've said this for many years. I've always said this: God is on the side of the poor, and He is. You can't read the Bible and not get a sense that God is on the side of the poor. We make every excuse for why we shouldn't have to help the poor. The truth is, the poor are here, and the poor, God's heart goes out to the poor, and if we have God's heart, then our heart will go out to them as well. So I'm going to read some verses. I'm just going to read a bunch of verses from Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 21 says this: "He who despises his neighbor sins, but he who has mercy on the poor, happy is he." So you ever have one of those neighbors that you live next to and you just couldn't get along, and it was just you just didn't like them, you didn't like them, they didn't like you, da da da. He says, "He who despises his neighbor," he who has one of those neighbors that he just can't stand, it's a burden to him. It says he sins. He says, "But the one who has mercy on the poor, he finds happiness." He finds happiness. Happy is he. Here's another one from Proverbs 19, verse 17. He says, "He who has pity on the poor, and he who has pity on the poor lends to the Lord, and He will pay back what He has given." He said, if anything that you do for the poor, it's like you are lending it to God, and God is going to pay you back. Wouldn't you rather have God paying you back? Wouldn't you rather have God being accountable to you for something? Not accountable, that's the wrong way to say it, but God's going to pay you back, and you can bet it's going to be more than you put into it. Chapter 21 of Proverbs, verse 13. This is a strong verse. This is a really strong verse. It says, "Whoever shuts his ears to the cry of the poor will also cry himself and not be heard." That if we close our ears to the cry of the poor, there may be a time when God might close His ears to us. Chapter 22, verse 2. "The rich man and the poor man have this in common: the Lord is maker of them all." You know what? Of all the differences between us and the poor, the main thing that we have in common is we were both made by God. We were both made by God. Christ died for both, and God loves both equally. One last verse, 28, Proverbs 28, verse 27. "He who gives to the poor will not lack, but he who hides his eyes will have many curses." That's a promise there about giving to the poor, that God's then going to provide for you. But if you hide your eyes, if you try to ignore them, He says you'll have many curses are going to come upon you. Hey, remember the poor. Have the right attitude toward the poor. Open up your life to God's hand working in you. God bless you guys. Get out there in faith this day. Love you. Bye.